I was going to mention some variations. Yes, the village, I've talked about those, yeah. So I'm going to mention another slightly unusual wedding. Unusual because the couple was so old. Diana and Raymond, both born in 1917, and we had a marriage ceremony in 2005, so they were 80, whatever it is, 87. He was Jewish, he's Jewish and she Christian, and so a humanist ceremony was a compromise for them, and again, so we went through the script. And they first met when they were 17, at the introduction of a mutual friend who was killed 6 years later in the Battle of Britain. Anyway, they both married other people, and had very happy marriages and families. And then Diana was widowed 28 years ago, and she remained close to Raymond and his wife until his wife died 2.5 years ago. This is me talking in 2005. So a year ago, Raymond and Diana became close once again, and suddenly glimpsed the possibility that all those years after their first meeting, after their marriages had run their courses and their separate families had grown up, that they might actually enjoy a late flowering of love together. And to fall in love at 87, a time when many people are alone with rapidly diminishing expectations, is, I said, a magnificent piece of good fortune. We had a ceremony in a room upstairs at the Ritz Hotel. Raymond was the southern heir of Montague Burton, the tailor. So they weren't short of a few bob, and we had a lovely lunch at the Ritz afterwards. I do remember that not all the children were happy, which is rather often the case. I mean, as some of you may know, children never really like the thought of their parents having a love life. How old are the children? 70. No, the son was probably in his mid-50s. So there were children and grandchildren, but and we did candles then. I mean, I mentioned the ritual of the rings. I mean, there are no other sort of prescribed rituals in a humanist ceremony. So the rings is one. They had candles, and the tradition, such as it is, I don't know where we picked it up from. The idea is that you each light a candle, so there's a candle representing each of your two lives. So if Alan and I were getting married, we each have a candle here, and then we put our candles together and light a third, which would symbolise our life together. But I'm never terribly keen on that sort of thing. I mean, I don't, unless if somebody wants candles, great, but I'm always worried that, you won't be able to light it, or something will get a bit shaky. I was worried about Raymond and Diana, because they were slightly shaky. But that all went fine. I must tell you, it did remind me, if you ever want a very funny picture, ask Jim Trimmer, who's a celebrant who works out of West London. He got a wonderful picture of some people who did the doves thing at a wedding. And the young woman, the bride, was wearing a very fabulous sort of dress, but topless. So, I mean, strapless. So it was cut here, and there was a picture of her at the moment of release of the doves, when of course the doves weren't the only things to be released. Hysterical funny picture. So I'm always a bit I'm not, I don't want to have too many elaborate schemes and things to do that could go wrong. Thank goodness nobody's ever asked me to work with doves. Anyway, I'm just going to mention another interesting wedding, which was between an Iranian and an Iranian man and a Finnish woman. That was unusual. It was in a North London hotel with a lot of people who didn't really understand the word I was saying, but I think Merdad and Helena did, and that was very sweet. And then in keeping with Iranian custom, the bride and groom offered each other a taste of honey. So somebody came up with a pot of honey. Tasted honey from each other. That was very sweet. But we don't normally have anything of that kind. but we do sometimes have communal singing. I've twice now had Stand By Me. Somebody plays the guitar and everybody sings along with Stand By Me, because most people know it, and that's worked nicely. And then there's a Native American blessing, which is sometimes recited by me or by somebody else or by the whole company. And this one, I remember, was recited by the whole company. So that's a sort of another way of finishing off, another sort of climax to the ceremony. It's a nice blessing which goes, now you will feel no rain, for each will shelter the other. Now you will feel no cold, for each will warm the other. Now you will not be lonely, for two lives can be lived as one. Go home to start your life together, and may your days be good and long upon the earth. So everybody recites that, and the couple go off and live happily ever after. And I was at the Richmond Hill wedding. I had I can't remember whose suggestion it was, but one of the parents had sort of put on the lunch, and the other parents were there, and a couple were close to their parents, and they said they'd like their parents to say. So I asked them, in turn, John and Kate, before this assembled company of family and friends, do you give your blessing for Victoria to be married to Kit today? We do. So you can, you can invent your own ceremony, and that's what I do with the couple. Whatever they want. If they think they'd like to involve their parents in some way, we talk about how we do that. And that worked quite nicely. And that's more or less what I was going to say about weddings. But questions about weddings?
Did you ask, is there anyone face to face when they speak that?
No, I've never done that. Well, not least because it doesn't, as I say, it doesn't, we don't have any legal force. I mean, there is I've got two weddings coming up where I'm hoping to do a joint number with a registrar. Now, historically, registrars haven't liked humanist celebrants at all. They don't see the point of us, They understand what vicars do, but they don't understand humanism. And so they think, well, we can do that. And I've heard registrars do humanist ceremonies, not very well in my view, but and then I've heard my stepdaughter asked me to conduct her wedding, but she had a register office job first. And there, they were great. They had a particularly lovely couple of women who organised it and ran it, and they had a nice atmosphere, and they read a little extract from Captain Corelli's Mandolin, which is a lovely romantic piece. So that was very sweet, and I actually felt slightly that my fun had been stolen. They'd had cheers and everything, and all the close family were there. But we had fun at the ceremony afterwards.
Can I ask what percentage of couples actually go on to have a legally binding ceremony as well?
Well, what usually happens is they go to a register office the same day or the day before. They go to, I've had one or two that have been to the register office in the morning and then had our ceremony in the afternoon. Others, do the register office the day before or sometimes a week before or whatever. But as I say, I'm really looking forward. I've been to one, a very good friend who got married, and he had a registrar who did her bit first, and then the registrar left and handed over to the humanist, and it was a bit odd because it was like sort of starting again, and I wasn't terribly happy with that. So I'm hoping that with the couple of weddings that I've got booked for next year, I'm going to be able to sort of run the whole thing, and we'll just, the registrar will just have a sort of very much a walk-on part of getting them to sign the register and asking them the essential questions, which probably does include, does anybody have any objection? Sorry, the young lady behind.
This relates to what you've just been saying. I can see why you wouldn't need to be more involved as a registrar, because I think, did you say that you do normally say, I now pronounce you man and wife?
I pronounce them husband and wife. I decided man and wife, although that is traditional, is not right. So I would make a point as husband and wife.
Because in a religious, so in a Christian service, according to Christian belief, those words have sacramental force, and so those are actually, in a religious sense, they are actually binding, and so that is the marriage, and it's almost the highlight of the ceremony. Do you think it has the same force? Do you still see that as one of the highlights of the ceremony?
I do, because the vows are their very personal bit that they say to each other in front of everybody, and I then just say that I now declare that in the view of this company, you are you are husband and wife, fully and properly married to one another, because they've done the legal bit, and so now this is the ceremony. Well, what I usually say, I often say that we have had the legal bit. I often say at the beginning, by the way, Alan and Chloe are already married in the eyes of the law, but this, for them, is the main event when they're going to pledge themselves to one another in front of you, their friends and family. So that's how I usually pitch that. Because one of the things I'm concerned about with weddings and funerals and everything is that everybody knows the full story, that everybody's really in the picture. I hate the thought of people muttering, so, this is legal, what's because people don't necessarily know what to expect from the humanist ceremony. So I like to put them in the picture. I mean, sometimes the couple say, we don't want to mention the legal bit. So if they don't want to mention it, we don't mention it.
I don't know if this is the right time, but could you just touch on the sort of training that the DHA
Still, I don't want to go into the training now, if you don't mind. I'd rather do it at the end, or possibly in the pub if you're coming. Because it's 1:30 and I haven't talked about funerals, which is usually the meatiest bit, really, if you know what I mean. Any quick queries about weddings? Yes?
Is there a chance of celebrants being able to take the place of a registrar?
Oh gosh, I hope so. I mean, we are, we're trying to get early day motions in Parliament and things.
The BHA campaign on it. So.
Yeah. Yes. It's an hour fast. Oh yes, I noticed that. No, I know. Yes, no, it's on the 7th. No, you're right. It's an hour fast. Yes. Okay. Well, I'd like to move on to funerals, which.